Hey, this is Daddy's Workshop with the Carolinas, and here's a quick video on a Powermatic 66 rebuild I did. Video has no frills, no funny jokes, no slick production values. Alright, so this is an early 60s era, I should say mid 60s era. The Powermatic started building the 66 in 1966, and this is from that first iteration. So first off, take the tabletop off. I didn't include that because that's super simple. There's just 3 bolts, 2 in the front, 1 in the back. Take those off. Then I like to take the motor off. As you can see, there's 2 bolts attaching the motor bracket to the internals of the saw. And then from there, I just work on all the external parts on the outside of the cabinet. There's here a switch bracket here I'm working on. Obviously, it's going to be a little different on the different era of the Powermatic saws. And then work on the badges, hand wheels, and so forth, so that then everything's off the outside of the cabinet. And from there, then can work on the internals. As I said, this is a 60s era saw, and there are some slight variations throughout the decades with the Powermatic 66, but the basic machine is the same. And now we're to removing the internals. So there are 2 bolts attaching each trunnion to the cabinet. I've removed those. And now I'm going to lift up on the trunnion box to try to remove that rear trunnion. And that trunnion bracket will eventually come out, similar to the Delta Unisaw. And then once that rear one's off, then we can lift up the trunnion box, get that out, and then move on to the front one. And there we're empty. And from here, I'm just going to work on further disassembly and cleaning, derusting, and so forth. And I'll use a wire brush to clean up these internal parts and then decide if I want to paint or not. Sometimes with the internal parts, I just do a really good cleaning. Sometimes I go all the way and repaint them as well. So this trunnion box here has the arbor bracket contained within it. And I was working on removing a gear segment connected to the arbor bracket. There you can see it on the floor there in the back of the picture. And now I'm working on removing the arbor bracket from within this trunnion box. And there's a retaining clip on one side of this shaft that I removed, and then I'm working on removing that, pounding it through. There you can see it's coming out. And then once that's out, then I'll be able to just remove this arbor bracket and have everything removed there, and then I'm removing the elevation shaft as well, so I can really get everything clean and take a look at everything and see how everything is. So then while I have all that removed and working on cleaning, at the same time I usually work on stripping the cabinet and then painting the cabinet. Here I've already painted the cabinet. For this one I used Rust-Oleum Moss Green. It's very similar to the original pea green color that's Powermatic used. And now I'm working just on putting the badges back on and the tilt gauge. And then working on reassembly here, I'm going to drop in this front trunnion, which also contains the tilt shaft. Then I'm going to put the trunnion box in. I obviously put the arbor bracket back in, and then the rear trunnion goes in. And then I'll work on reattaching the 4 bolts to the cabinet. These early model saws, actually the front bracket attaches to the cabinet itself with those 2 bolts that you saw me tightening there. Here I'm just tightening down all 4 of these bolts once I have everything aligned. I'll reattach the switch mounting bracket. And here's just a little side note on how the locking knobs actually lock the hand wheels.
Just going to point out here the locking mechanism on the Powermatic 66 tilt and elevation shafts. So we have a locking pin that goes into the shaft, tightens up like normal, and here we have a woodruff key, and you can see when I start to tighten that, right here starts to lift up. So you can see the woodruff key starts to lift up when this is tightened, and that then pushes against the casting and creates the friction. So it's a little bit different design than the Delta Unisaw. Same basic principle of a pin pushing something out to create friction, but these use a single woodruff key on the shaft that pushes against the casting.
And now here's just a little highlight of the arbor reassembly. In this case, the original arbor was so seized up and rusted that I just purchased a new arbor assembly from the later model of Powermatic 66, and it fits right in the same arbor casting. They just changed the bearings from double row bearings to single row bearings. They increased the size of the spacer, and they added some retaining clips to hold things in place. So here I am putting that back into the arbor bracket. There's one set screw. Once you have everything aligned, it's important to tighten that down properly. Put the Woodruff key on and then the pulley on. There's set screws on the pulley here. Again, this is a newer model arbor assembly that I'm putting into this older Powermatic 66. And then here I'm reattaching the motor bracket to the motor. And then we'll put that in as well. Line up the belts and then put a final tighten down on that set screw on the top to ensure that the belts are properly aligned. Once all that internal work is done, then I'll put the tabletop back on. In this case, I put a Beastmeyer fence on. I have a video of documenting that whole process, so I'm not doing that here. But here you can see I'm reattaching everything, making sure everything's aligned properly. And hopefully, hey, this video helps you with your Powermatic refurbish and restoration. This is not a complete documentation of the process, but hopefully something here can help you with yours and get you started. Because remember, if I can do it, you can do it.